What's up, guys? Raziel here again, and today I'm going to be coming at you with a video about an issue that is hard to get excited about. Mainly because I'm going to go over the biggest issues facing the 4 most popular MMOs today, their biggest downfalls, and don't worry, my favorite MMO is on the chopping block as well, and the chances are yours will be too. So try not to be biased, try not to be a fuckwit, have your box of tissues nearby for one of 2 purposes. I guess that's up to you. But anyway, let's see what's causing these games to have so many shitty problems. Let's go.
I am Raziel.
Alright guys, so here we are, going deep into the gauntlet again. And as a forewarning, this video is going to be more audio than it is visual. So, that means get shit done around the house, do other things. You don't necessarily need to be watching. I will leave some eye candy up on the screen with a few little Easter egg gifts here and there, as I always do. But if you just want to listen, you're driving in your car, this is a good video to have playing right now. So, I'm going to start with the preface that keep in mind all of these games I'm going to mention are technically theme park MMOs with the exception of one, which is more of a hybrid between a theme park and a sandbox. However, that's not quite as relevant, though it does make it clear why some of these issues even exist in the first place. And like I said, I'm going to start with the MMO that's currently my favorite MMO on the market, but it is not without its flaws. Of course, I'm talking about Final Fantasy XIV, and as you will have noted from my other videos, I was very clear and I was very honest when I said that if Square ever did things that, you know, was stupid, was bullshit, I thought was bad for the game, I'd call them out on it. I'm no fucking unique snowflake that's going to melt under the heat of any kind of scrutiny or criticism. In fact, I enjoy calling companies out on their bullshit, and it really blows my mind sometimes how companies think some of these things they do are a good idea. But anyway, I digress. Let's get into the points that I think are the shittiest and are holding Final Fantasy XIV back. The first and foremost, which is also, I think, its greatest problem right now, is it's only happened this expansion. It wasn't really a thing in last expansion or A Realm Reborn. But it's that Square has this funny idea that releasing content that's already irrelevant when it releases is a good idea. So, what am I talking about? I'm talking about Eureka. Eureka and the 24-man raids. Now, the 24-man raids, fight-wise, design-wise, visually, audio, everything is gorgeous about them. They're fantastic. They're fun to play. The problem with the 24-man raids is the reward, the juice isn't worth the squeeze half the time, unless you're just gearing up an alternate character. But I think there needs to be more reward. I think maybe you could even do organized 24-mans and maybe put a savage mode difficulty. Something, we are working within the constraints of a theme park MMO here, but something's got to give. Right now, 24-man raids is kind of pointless in terms of the reward system attached to them. But even worse, 10 times worse than the 24-man raid model and the problems that are going along with it, I would say has been the content that's been unique to this expansion, Eureka. Now, Eureka is the primary path to a relic weapon, which I understand has always been a grind and has always been kind of a drag for some people. That's understandable, but the reward you get if you go all the way through the end is worth it. Your relic weapon, and it becomes the best weapon of the expansion by the last patch. However, I'm not talking about the relic weapon. I'm talking about fucking goddamn Eureka, where up until that point, the relic weapon that you have and the relic armor that you get is fucking so far below item level cap that when you get it, it's fucking pointless. It's meaningless. It really doesn't provide motivation, and on top of that, let's be honest, man, the content of Eureka just fucking blows. It's bad. I see what they were trying. They were trying to point back to Final Fantasy XI, but there's a huge difference that's not noted. In Final Fantasy XI, yeah, it was very, very grindy. It was very, very monotonous, but the combat was much slower. You didn't have to have a perfect rotation where you're, you know, playing a symphony on a piano, because one thing I praise Final Fantasy XIV for is its rotations and its class depth is quite complex, and it's a good thing. But you can't mix and match. You can't mix the grind and the monotony of Final Fantasy XI with the fast-paced, you know, faster-paced rotations and focus needed in Final Fantasy XIV. They just don't mesh well. So Eureka Animos was tolerable, mainly because they had the Fate Train. At least you could socialize, fuck around, have a good time while you're, you know, going from Notorious Monster Fate to Notorious Monster Fate. And it was tolerable, you know, palatable. You could swallow that pill. It wasn't that bad. I mean, the content wasn't inspiring by any stretch of the imagination, but you could do it, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Now you go into Eureka Pagos, which now I've had, you know, the opportunity to experience, and it is fucking ass cancer. Okay, Eureka Pagos sucks fucking ass. It sucks so much balls, I can't even describe it. If you come in it late, like I did, good fucking luck. You're going back to Animos for 5 levels, grinding out even more, because the Notorious Monster Fate Train doesn't exist in Pagos. It spawns 1 or 2 Notorious Monster Fates every couple of hours. So, granted, the amount of experience you get from it is much higher, but it's not a profitable way to do things. So you're grinding out monsters in a small group or by yourself for hours and hours and hours and hours on end. Again, doing your very fast rotation to stay alive. And it fucking sucks, man. It is like, come on, just take a fucking nail gun and shoot me with the 6-inch nail right through the goddamn eye socket bad. It is bad. I'm waiting, for the most part, for Pagos to be nerfed before I continue my Relic Weapon quest in that section, because I literally can't do it. It is so mind-numbingly dull. And not to mention the fact that the level design of Pagos, and the fact it didn't even change the music from Animos. You know, you've been listening to that music for so long. But they completely screwed the pooch here. The level design is very punishing. It's very bad. You can't even really start the relic quest there until elemental level 25. The elemental level cap is 35, and then once you hit 35, that's where the real grind begins, which is for light for your weapon, which, you know, is going to get nerfed when the next Eureka comes out. So it's just bad design. It's awful design, and it's a failed experiment. Square should recognize that. Hopefully they do, and never bring some bullshit like this back again. I mean, at least in the Relic Weapon quest in Heavensward and the Relic Weapon quest in A Realm Reborn, you could grind it out your way. You could choose the activities you did to get the items you needed. You know, and a lot of it involved very social activities, not this mindless, dull fucking grind. So that's my opinion on Eureka Pagos, and I don't understand why Square thought it was a good idea to release content that's, you know, eye level wise is irrelevant within a week or two after it comes out. The next point I'm going to bring up is a point you'll see in a lot of the other games I'm going to bring up, which is that Final Fantasy XIV is currently stuck in the theme park gated reward system. See my end game video that I did last time for more information on that. But it's a loot treadmill essentially, with a weekly lockout. And I think this is one of the biggest flaws that's crippling most of the MMOs on the market today, that, you know, the vast majority of them that come out are theme park, which is a distinction that only existed since the inception of World of Warcraft. Before that, all MMOs were sandpark MMOs, and in my opinion, sandpark MMOs are vastly superior. However, that's not the point of this video. Because, and I'm going to go into this same point with the next game I talk about, when you have weekly lockouts, when you have an end game system that's all about weekly lockouts, your most hardcore players knock it out in the first day or two, and then they have no reason to play your fucking game the rest of the week. And the most casual players, you know, feel more rushed than they'd like to, because, hey, that shit's going to reset in a week. You better get all that shit done, instead of letting you play at your own pace. Now, I'm a strong believer and advocate of, if you play more, you should be rewarded more, you should be stronger than someone who plays less. That's just life. It's fucking life, man. You don't like it? Take your tampon out, get over it, stop being a bitch. But the bottom line is this design of, you know, your weekly rewards and daily rewards is fucking bad. Daily rewards I don't remind as much, but weekly rewards is cancer. Mainly because if you have to gate your content, the only way to keep your content relevant until the next patch cycle comes around is to gate off how much you can be rewarded every week, you have a fucking serious problem with your game. And this is something that I think all theme park MMOs, and Final Fantasy XIV is no exception, need to look at in their next expansion or their next iteration of the game or their next title to rectify, because this is an end game system that cannot live forever and is driving people out of their games. On to point 3 for Final Fantasy XIV is that the open world has become meaningless. And this is something that I was talking about where it didn't used to be the case. Final Fantasy, the open world used to always be relevant, you know, back before the days of skip potions and all that kind of stuff, where you had to grind out fates to get your levels up. You had to go out in the open world and do things outside of just, you know, queuing for dungeons and that kind of shit to excel. And now the only reason to go out in the open world in Final Fantasy XIV is the crafting, which is an exceptional system. I will give mad props to Final Fantasy XIV for their crafting system. But to farm for materials, you have to go out in the open world, but even then only in the relevant areas of the expansion. And if you do the hunts, which a lot of people still do, so you still go out in the world for the hunts, but for the most part, the Realm Reborn and Heavensward areas are dead, which is, again, because of the theme park design. If there's no reason to keep your world relevant, there's no reason for anyone to go out there. So that's something I think Final Fantasy XIV needs to address. All right, on to the next game. And this is a big one for probably a lot of you. World of fucking Warcraft. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to say about World of Warcraft is I've only played BFA a little bit at a friend's house. I played a character and got it to like 115, but then I watched him play some endgame. I watched a lot of videos. I read a lot of MMO Champion just to see what's going on. You know, as an MMO content creator, I kind of try to keep up to date on even games I don't really actively play. Talked to a lot of my old guildmates who still play, though that number has decreased drastically. And the first thing I want to say before I even touch Battle for Azeroth and its problems directly is I want to say that you know a game has fucking serious problems when the biggest thing people are excited for in your player base is the re-release of a 15-year-old version of your product. So if there are all these people waiting desperately for Classic, man, take a fucking long hard look at yourselves and the simple fact that that's what you're excited about, doing something you did 15 years ago again, because the current version of the product is so goddamn awful. Yeah. Anyway, here's my points about World of Warcraft that I think are huge hindrances on the game right now. World of Warcraft has become more casual, more homogenized, and the most poorly thought out version of World of Warcraft ever to be in existence than it's ever been in history. Like, it's so homogenized. There's no class depth. None. There's absolutely no class depth. The rotations are 5-button rotations, and they've made it even worse with the changes they made to the GCD. It's sad. It's really fucking sad to see, like, and I know, you know, people are gonna go, well, it was always cookie cutter back then. Okay, but you still felt like you had a choice. It was possible to gimp your character out in Classic and in Burning Crusade and in Wrath of the Lich King. And it still felt rewarding when you leveled up and you got a skill point to put somewhere. Now that all that's been gone and you only get a talent choice like once every 15-30 levels, that's piss poor design. And the whole design of Battle for Azeroth is appalling to me. The entire structure is flawed on every level, on a concrete foundational level. And you know what's funny, with class is so homogenized and so simple now in that game, it blows my mind how imbalanced it is. It's more imbalanced than even it was in Legion. And I played through the imbalance of Legion, and class imbalance is so poor. Do they even fucking care over at Blizzard anymore? Do they even... I'm convinced, and I've been convinced for the last 5 years, that no one at Blizzard actually plays their own fucking games. All their games. With the exception of maybe Overwatch. They don't play World of Warcraft. They don't play Diablo. They just design shit, tell you what you think they want you want to hear, and move on with their day. World of Warcraft is the ultimate example, even more so than any other theme park MMO, as a queuing simulator. I mean, at least in Final Fantasy XIV, if you want to do Savage modes and you're not in a guild, you have to actually go through Party Finder and talk to people and make a group. But World of Warcraft is the queuing simulator, man. It's Stand in a town and queue. And it's been this way for a long time. And it's not engaging or intelligent gameplay. Next point. And this is kind of reflecting back on the first point, is, as I was saying, I don't think there's any passion behind 99% of developers at Blizzard anymore. There's no passion there. They're no longer with the mindset of they want to make a game that they themselves would be desperate to play. It's all dollar signs. It's an Activision game over there now. So if you still play World of Warcraft, my deepest, sincerest condolences. You should stop being such a fucking masochist and play something else. Anything else. The World of Warcraft's taken it a step further in terms of the open world. Not only is the open world meaningless, which it has been for, I don't know, 8 years, 9 years, but now it's grindy on top of it. So all these world quests that spawn, man, there you go do those world quests, even though they reward jack shit outside of rep, and you have to do rep to get certain things. So the open world has forced meaning that is meaningless, if that makes sense. It's anywhere outside the current expansion zone is, you know, dead as a doorknob. The expansion zones, people feel obligated to do the outworld content. They're not motivated to do it. It's just fucking trash. And again, WoW suffers as the original, as Patient Zero. It suffers from the theme park syndrome. WoW is Patient Zero. The gear treadmill of Patient is, you know, it's bad. And it's even worse because, like in any theme park MMO, Blizzard trivializes their own reward system with each patch. Final Fantasy XIV, at least, you know, you get 2 or 3 patches where your gear is relevant before you're on the gear treadmill again. World of Warcraft, it's every patch, man. And there's a catch-up mechanic that trivializes the gear you worked for every patch cycle. So it's cancer, man. And on top of that, a lot of the gear in the game has RNG on top of RNG on top of RNG on top of RNG, so it's even more drawn out. Like I said, World of Warcraft and its gear treadmill is Patient Zero of this problem. So enjoy getting fucked in the ass by RNG over and over, and then your gear becomes irrelevant, and every patch a new player can come in and get to and or exceed your item level and your power level without even trying. So yeah, that feels rewarding. And it ties right into the next big issue World of Warcraft has, and it's had for a while, is its loot welfare system. Anyone else remember back in the day of vanilla Burning Crusade, you see a character fully geared out in raid gear, or, you know, the high-end PvP gear, and you'd be like, man, I want to fucking get that gear. I want to be that powerful. I want to be that cool, because the gear did provide that actual advantage in combat and PvP, in PvE, and on top of that, you looked fucking unique. I mean, and now everyone gets purples. Everyone gets purples. You get a purple. You get a purple. Everyone gets purples. It's fucking meaningless. You mean the last expansion, everyone gets legendaries. Legendaries for everybody. It's so fucking tripe and meaningless. There's no effort, and so it doesn't matter what the reward is, because there's no effort involved. Here's another big point of World of Warcraft that I think is a huge problem. Every expansion I've noticed, more shit gets taken out of the game than gets added. I mean, just in BFA, players lost tier gear, unique looking gear for their class. They lost more choices. Keep this in mind, there have been no new abilities outside of some talent tweaks and renames. There have been no actual new abilities added to a single class since Mists of Pandaria. That's fucking sad. That every expansion, they just take more shit away. Take more shit away, make things more simple. Again, see homogenization. And there's no innovation. Nothing like that. So there's always, every expansion, a talent reshuffle, which essentially means you have to relearn how to play your class. Some classes more than others. And it's gotten to the point where things are even more cookie cutter than they were in Vanilla or Burning Crusade in terms of your build. Like that exists. The Azerite system's a complete fucking joke. It's 1/118th of the artifact power weapon system from last expansion, and I mean, the artifact weapon system was kind of dumb, but at the same time it had some cool things about it too. And the artifact Azerite necklace, or whatever the fucking shit it is, in this expansion is just fucking scrotum cancer. It's completely shit. Just an even more dumbed down version of something they just barely created 2 years ago, last expansion. Anyway, moving on, it seems to me the all is required really to, you know, get within 10 item levels, 5 item levels of the highest tier players in that game now is you have to have a pulse. That's about it. You have to be alive and breathing. Maybe not even that. Maybe a robot could do it even more efficiently. Anyway, and again, the final point I'm going to bring up about World of Warcraft, which I think is a huge plague on it, is, again, out of all the MMOs I've ever played, it is easily the most toxic community out of them all. And it remains to this day that way. And you know, it's not just the players that are to blame. The community managers at Blizzard are extremely toxic as well. A lot of them, Lore for example, does not deal with confrontation well, and he trashes the player base that he serves on his own personal Twitter account. There's been other videos made about this topic. Heel versus Babyface, one of the my favorite YouTubers, covered this. But yeah, it's toxic as fuck. It's a straight up sledge pool, and you're gonna get cancer going in there because it's so goddamn radioactive. So I recommend, again, if you stick with it, my condolences, Godspeed, but I highly recommend you get out because it's better elsewhere. And I'm not just saying in Final Fantasy XIV, it's better in a lot of other games. So yeah, that's my points about World of Warcraft. Okay, on to the next game, Elder Scrolls Online. Now, in my other videos, I said I hadn't played it yet. If you've been watching my stream, you see that I've started playing Elder Scrolls because I want to have some perspective. I want to, if I make MMO content on my YouTube channel, and it's primarily the types of games I stream on my Twitch, I better know what I'm talking about. So, Elder Scrolls. Now, Elder Scrolls Online is a good game. It's a very good game. Much better than what I hear from when it released. I didn't play it at release, so I wouldn't know. But here are my problems. I'm about level 20 in Elder Scrolls, so 30 away from cap. I know that's not super deep. And it's got a lot of things I love about the game. But there are some major flaws too. My first and biggest flaw for Elder Scrolls Online is it plays way too much like a single player game. And I think the reason why it does this is because it is not a full sandbox or a full theme park. It's a hybrid. Now, if it was a full sandbox, I mean, you could play it like a single player game, but I think things would happen more organically in the world because in a real sandbox game, enemies don't scale to your level. There's dangerous enemies in dangerous zones. You have to get to a certain level to reach. That doesn't exist in Elder Scrolls Online. No matter where you go in this huge world, everything's your level. So the necessity and the need to make friends and to make those organic friendships or enemies and relationships is not needed. It's not there. So it plays very much like you're just playing a regular Elder Scrolls game, like Skyrim or Oblivion, which is not necessarily completely awful, but I don't think it serves the purposes that a true sandbox MMO needs to have to be that big of an open world. It's a huge flaw in Elder Scrolls Online that, there's really no danger anywhere with the exception of an occasional world boss or monster here or there that spawns in the world, that might shit on you. For the most part, everything's your level, so then where's the power gain? Where's where's the motivation to get stronger? In true sandbox MMOs like, EverQuest or Sharon's Call, the reason you wanted to get stronger, get more levels, get better gear, get better things is so you would go in those areas and those zones and those dungeons that you couldn't before. That doesn't really exist in Elder Scrolls Online, and I think that's partly because of its casual theme park elements that are, baked into its sandbox elements, which is unfortunate. The second thing, because as I said earlier, you mix sandbox and theme park, bad shit happens. The world in Elder Scrolls is huge. Unfortunately, that means because it tries to put those theme park elements into a sandbox, a lot of things feel aimless and chaotic. There doesn't seem to be a good flow to the game. You have an overflow of information, an overflow of options, and the theme park elements clash strongly with the sandbox elements in the game. So everything feels very random and aimless and pointless. Even in most sandbox games, there's still a direction the game points you in of ideas of how to get stronger, of where to go, of what areas you should be trying to. And again, because the game scales to your level, there's no areas you should or should not be in Elder Scrolls. It's, in my opinion, too much. there's too much everywhere. I'm not talking about too much content. I'm talking about there's so much and there's no direction to give you any kind of hint or clue of what's more important than other things. So that's a huge issue I have with Elder Scrolls Online. And one of the biggest issues, and my final point for Elder Scrolls Online that I have an issue with, is the goddamn microtransactions, man. If you buy the fucking game, you buy the fucking expansions, you pay the fucking subscription fee, you should have access to everything, and the only transactions that should be there at that point should be little cosmetic things, a mount maybe a cosmetic piece of armor, which it has those, but it also has so many DLCs that are fucking all over the place that are just quest lines, things like the Thieves Guild, Dark Brotherhood, shit like that you're like, fuck, man. When do you have enough of my money where I get full access to the game? In my opinion, you should be able to buy the whole game, all expansions included, because keep in mind, Elder Scrolls failed hard when it first came out. You should be able to buy everything, every piece of content in the game for in between $50 and $60. And then, if you choose to subscribe from that point on, every expansion that comes out, you just get. That should be how it is. All the little DLCs you just get. And then the only thing you have microtransactions for at that point should be if you want to do little cosmetic things. But right now there's so many cancerous fucking microtransactions in that game that it's overwhelming. Like, it's beyond Call of Duty fucking loot box bad. It's just bad. So yeah, that needs to go. I'm sorry, but you can't have microtransactions that matter on top of subscription, on top of buying the game. It just doesn't work for me. That's fucking horse shit, and I think it's criminal. It's crooked, bad business practices, and it needs to be addressed. Okay, and now the final game. Again, I said the top 4 MMOs, so the final game, you probably already guessed what it is. Guild Wars 2. Now, I played right before my hiatus. I was playing the game quite consistently on Twitch just to get a feel for it. And again, Guild Wars 2 is a good game. It's a very good game, but it has its problems. Now, Guild Wars 2 has a polar opposite problem of Elder Scrolls Online, where I said Elder Scrolls Online had no direction and was too big, too open, without any sense of danger or sense of where you need or should not be. Guild Wars 2 is the exact opposite. Guild Wars 2 is the most linear MMO I've ever played. It's very, 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 very streamlined, very linear, and it's not really, I wouldn't say hand-holding, but it's got some dangerous zones and dangerous things, far more than WoW, more than Elder Scrolls. But it's finding it kind of hard to have it make sense. You kind of have to experience it. But Guild Wars 2 is linear in the sense that it's always point A to point B, and there's very little in between, and you hit little walls where, okay, you have to stop and grind a little bit, and then you can continue on in your linear path. Now, Final Fantasy XIV is linear in its storyline, but after that, you can go out and do whatever. Guild Wars 2 is kind of the same, but I just feel so much more forced into a straight line in Guild Wars 2. Maybe it's just me, but I think the game is far too linear and far too feels like you're playing tiny sections of cutscenes and videos, and that's that. And that's just, and that feels very single-player-y to me. Like, a lot of the things you have to do is very single-player-y, but in a different way than Elder Scrolls. It's very, you're in your own little world, then you can get kicked back out, and there's other people there. That's how Guild Wars 2 feels. Another point in Guild Wars 2, I feel like there's a lack of class depth in Guild Wars 2. I think everything's very cookie cutter in Guild Wars 2. It's not as bad as World of Warcraft. And I think as far as class depth, the game that has the most class depth is probably Elder Scrolls. But Guild Wars 2 feels very mechanical and very cookie cutter, and there's not a whole lot of unique class identity in Guild Wars 2. I'm going to put that out there. And then my final point, again, a lot of these other games outside of World of Warcraft don't have near as many issues, and granted, World of Warcraft's been out much longer. But my final point for Guild Wars 2 is its reward and end game system is kind of lackluster in terms of the best and top end gear doesn't provide that much of a benefit in PvE or PvP. PvE a little more, but PvE not really. A lot of things are, you know, scaled to be fair for balance sake. At least when I was playing, maybe that's changed since I played, and I didn't get really heavy into the PvP the last time around that I played the game, but I just got the sense of there's no like gear sitting out there where you're like, I need to have it, I need to get that. I mean, at least, you know, where you have it and people look, you go, holy shit, you have that item. I don't know if that exists in Elder Scrolls. I haven't got far enough into the game. I know that doesn't exist any longer in World of Warcraft, and it still exists in the relic weapon in Final Fantasy XIV. But I don't ever remember anything like that existing in Guild Wars 2, where there's just something you have to have, and you know, it's not only a status symbol if you have it, but it actually provides a sizable character advantage in the content that's provided in the game. I don't see that existing in Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 seems very casual friendly, even more so than World of Warcraft in some respects, and less so in other respects. So guys, that's my list. The biggest things that came to mind when addressing each individual game. I've kind of been on a kick lately of really looking at the state of the MMORPG genre right now, and it's in pretty dire states, mainly because of the theme park MMO versus the sandbox, which I may make another video on in the near future. However, what do you guys think of my list? What do you guys think of my critiques of each game? Do you agree? Do you disagree? You know, like I said, I'm always open to good discussion and contrasting ideas and opinions. And if you're just a fuckboy that wants to troll my comment section, you know, go for it. Then when you're done, go look in the mirror, and you'll see the only person on this planet that fucking gives a shit that you exist. But either way, go ahead and comment down below. What do you think? I'm going to be setting up my new stream schedule soon on Twitch, so you know when I'll be online. Again, I always post on YouTube and Twitter when I'm going online, especially if it's an unplanned stream. But I will have a more concrete schedule soon. Again, like I said, going through a divorce does a lot of shit to you, you know, changes your life around, your schedule around, so I'm slowly coming back. But you'll see my links to my Twitter and my Twitch in the corner right now. And please, if you like the video, you like the content I produce, you know, subscribe, follow, what have you. If you hate it, subscribe, follow, go fuck yourself, I don't care. But this has been Razio, guys. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll be back with you some more content real soon. And as always, keep it real.